Alex arrives home and finds a disconcerting scene. In the middle of the living room, on the carpet, lies his own body. Next to it, an envelope with the inscription, "Look at me." The initial shock turns into curiosity, and with trembling hands, he opens the envelope. Inside, he finds a USB drive. Without wasting time, he plugs it into his computer, and on the screen appears someone very familiar. Himself, or rather, his future self. The other Alex seems calm and assures him that he is neither high nor going crazy, and warns him to pay close attention. The story truly begins when a group of people in dark suits, looking like government agents, arrive at his house. Among them is Rebecca, who works for an advanced scientific research institute that collaborates with the National Security Agency of the United States. Rebecca offers Alex a very tempting proposal, but first, he must sign a confidentiality agreement, with a generous check as an incentive. After signing the documents, Alex listens to the story of an unregistered American satellite, which the United States officially never launched, but that mysteriously seems to have come from the future with a coded message inside. If he accepts, they will put him to sleep and take him to the lab. Knowing he's practically bankrupt and lives in a house he inherited from his parents, Rebecca immediately transfers a large sum to his account to prove her seriousness, convincing Alex to sign the documents. The next day, they take him by car, inject him with a sedative, and he wakes up in a secret location. Rebecca shows him the lab where the satellite is located, and Alex begins working on deciphering the code. 5 weeks pass without results, but Alex refuses to take a break. One day, he has a vision of a young woman decoding the same code, and then she begins to bleed from her nose. Later, he finds the name of that woman written on the bed frame. Finally, Alex manages to decipher part of the code, which contains drawings of an unknown device. Rebecca informs him that his work is done and that he will be returned home. Alex wakes up at home in the middle of the night, feeling unwell and attributing his malaise to exhaustion and stress. However, in the following days, his symptoms worsen, and he begins to be plagued by persistent hallucinations. One day, 2 strange men appear at his door, wanting to know why he agreed to decode the code. Alex doesn't understand. As for him, it was just a well-paying job. The men pose moral questions to him, asking if he's not worried about the consequences of his work, as the device created from the decrypted plans could become the most powerful weapon in the world. With a headache, Alex asks them to leave. The men thank him and leave, and Alex immediately feels relieved. He sits down at his computer, but at that moment, he receives a call from Rebecca, reminding him of the confidentiality agreements he signed. Angry, Alex realizes that the Institute is watching him. When he tries to work on the computer again, the lights go out. He goes outside and sees one of the men who had visited him before, standing on the other side of the street. But to his horror, the man's body begins to grow before his eyes. Frightened, Alex runs back to his house and watches as a giant hand reaches for his window. In a reflexive act, he extends his own hand, and at that moment, dawn breaks. Rebecca arrives and finds Alex working. He tries to explain to her that humanity lives in a two-dimensional space, and that his recent visitors belong to an advanced civilization that exists not only in space but also in time, and that they can observe what happens through a kind of temporal window. Alex tries to make Rebecca see the danger of building the device, which could unleash a world war. Then, Rebecca informs him that she knows about his condition, a brain tumor. Alex blames the Institute, saying that exposure to the radioactive satellite was the cause, and demands that construction of the device be stopped. Alex, in the present, takes the corpse of his own body out of the house and buries it in the forest. Then, he returns to his computer and continues listening to the story of his future self, who laments that they didn't. Alex tries to warn them, but no one wants to listen to him. He begins to realize that something sinister is coming. At that moment, he remembers the woman, Beth, a cryptographer. He finds her address, but she refuses to talk to him. Desperate, Alex shouts that he only has 6 months left to live. Beth, moved, opens the door and reveals that she has 2 years left. She, too, has understood that the design is a weapon and that it seems to come from the future. Another character, Shearman, communicates with Beth through the computer, sending her tasks that she solves when she feels well. However, Beth starts to feel unwell, and a man takes her to her bedroom. Downstairs, Alex observes how he seems to see fragments of Beth's life reflected in the mirrors. The farewell to a loved one in military uniform, the devastating news her comrades bring, and the scene where she tries to end her life with a handful of pills. But a message from Shearman breaks his focus on the screen. Alex responds, but Shearman quickly detects that it is not Beth and cuts the communication. Alex takes a packet of printed papers with tasks Shearman had given Beth. In the morning, Beth finds him on the couch with the papers organized like a puzzle. He suggests that these pieces might hold the key to an answer and points out that Shearman probably doesn't work for the Institute. Alex asks Beth to help him stop the creation of this deadly machine. Beth tells him that she, too, began feeling unwell after working with the satellite, having hallucinations and even hearing the voices of the dead, including her own. She has also seen aliens, although she doesn't believe in them, and she asks Alex to leave. Back at home, Alex encounters agents in black waiting for him. Rebecca orders him to stop seeing Beth and to make good use of his remaining time. Alex, infuriated, tells them to go to hell and enters his house only to discover that all his papers with conclusions have disappeared. Meanwhile, Beth sees a bright light in her house that makes her feel sick. She screams in terror and tries to hide. Alex tries to drown his thoughts in alcohol when he receives a message from Shearman on his computer. He is convinced that Rebecca is behind that pseudonym, but the interlocutor denies it. Just at that moment, the doorbell rings. Beth is at the door. It turns out that Shearman sent Beth there along with the plans for a device capable of destroying future technology. Together, they begin developing a virus that could disable the machine created from the plans they deciphered. The next morning, Rebecca bursts into Alex's house. Representatives from the Institute know what they are doing and are on their way. Rebecca reveals the name of the Institute's founder and orders them to seek him out immediately. She confesses that she is Shearman and had hoped to destroy the device with their help. As cars approach Alex's house, the couple escapes through the back exit. Rebecca is captured, injected with something, and thrown into a car. Meanwhile, all the burners in Alex's kitchen are left on. That night, Alex and Beth arrive at the home of a scientist named Miles, who immediately recognizes them. He has always followed their work. Miles explains that this satellite is not the only one. Another one orbited Earth for about 400 years. Apparently, unknown beings from the future were waiting for humans to evolve and be able to decipher their message. This ancient satellite also contained plans for a machine whose purpose was to limit humanity's evolution within the third dimension. However, when Miles announced his discovery, he was ridiculed. He, too, developed a tumor, though it's not fatal. He is convinced that aliens can exist in multiple dimensions and that they don't perceive time linearly, as humans do. Miles explains that the second device, now under construction at the Institute, would allow them access to the human dimension. For now, it's as if they are watching a movie in which humans are the characters. With the first device, they can watch this movie without changing what happens, but the second device could allow them to modify the existing reality. Miles is only beginning to understand the essence of this process, but he cannot fully explain it. After all, even the alien's appearance is shaped by the human brain itself. By the way, he has been in contact with a huge alien, visible only to him, living in his garden for over 30 years. Miles constantly observes it, allowing his brain to adapt and start seeing the humanoid's true appearance, though his guests see nothing. Miles is convinced that the tumor in their heads is help from the aliens so that they can perceive their reality. Alex suggests simply smashing the device with a hammer but questions if that guarantees the Institute won't restore it. So, all data on the server needs to be erased, although no one knows the Institute's location. However, Miles reminds them that he is one of its founders and pulls out a map with a detailed plan of the place. At that moment, a loud bang is heard at the door. The couple runs away while Miles tries to calm the raging alien. Alex and Beth hit the road and soon find the Institute building. They open a hatch and sneak inside. They decide to split up to increase their chances of finding the lab. Alex witnesses the strange behavior of a guard who constantly walks backward and realizes that time inside the Institute is looping. Beth also falls into this loop and, realizing the futility of her attempts to move forward, activates the bomb. However, due to the time loop, she cannot leave the danger zone. Alex enters a dark room and tries to carry the bomb further, but he is intercepted by an alien who literally disintegrates him into small particles. A minute later, Alex finds himself tied to a table. In front of him sits a humanoid. Alex thinks he has died, but the alien denies this belief. It explains that they are only curious about the human appearance and their experience of time. For aliens, linear time is incomprehensible, tedious, and an endless repetition of empty beliefs. Humans are trapped in a constant cycle, forced to live the same thing over and over, while aliens exist outside of time and space. They are in every moment at once, so causal connections and action sequences are mysteries to them. The alien asks Alex what would happen if a human no longer had to wait for anything. Alex realizes that in such a case, humanity would resemble the alien's appearance, but the human identity and ego would disappear in that instant. The alien is surprised by humanity's resistance to death, which is natural but something people try to hide and avoid. For humans, time is everything. It is both a gift and a thief. It shapes their worldview and what will happen when that projection source disappears. Even with all eternity to analyze itself, a human would not understand the difference between reality and illusion. With each new birth, a new reality arises. Therefore, each person is always faced with a choice. Alex feels very ill, and then the alien offers to take him back to the moment before he got sick, with the knowledge he has now. Alex decides he would not have worked at the Institute or let all of this happen. The alien asks why he would change his behavior if he cannot change the outcome, and Alex admits that humans really don't choose what will happen. The humanoid insists, "Will returning to the past make any difference? Can anything actually change?" Suddenly, Alex finds himself at home, in front of his computer. He records this information on a USB drive, realizing that nothing can be changed. The world may disappear tomorrow, but this is no news. Everything has already happened. Everything ended before it began. He puts the USB drive in an envelope and falls to the floor. The last words on the drive are a warning from Alex in the past to Beth. Alex heads to the girl's house, while his future self, in his last words, asks her to forget everything and move on. An intriguing ending that invites us to reflect. What if time really doesn't exist and we only live in the here and now, in a single moment? Who made us believe there is a past and future? Is it true that a person makes decisions without considering how their thoughts and actions change their own future? Friends, share your opinion in the comments.